Hi there. As promised, we will be talking about fearing God. A few weeks ago, my parents in law were visiting, and my father in law was looking through kind of a weird book of phobias and just kind of chit chatting. And he was talking about different phobias. And I don't have any, and they're interesting, but he did get to one that is called the phobophobia, which is a fear of fears. And that actually resonated. I said, okay, well, you know what, Wayne, if I have any fears, that's the one, a fear of fear. I don't like being afraid, and I don't like other people to be afraid. I don't like what happens when people are afraid. Um, anyway, the word fearing God or fear of God kind of jumps out at me as something to think about, talk about, and sit with. In the Old Testament, it talks about the fear of God as the beginning of wisdom. Then New Testament, 1 John 4, talks about perfect love casts out fear. So there's what would we call that? Some sort of continuum, if you will. And so I decided to pull out all the translations and see what all the translations say. Of course, the original and probably the most authentic is the King James, and it says, feared God. So then I looked up the NIV, which has been a favorite of mine. It says, feared God. New Living Translation, feared God. New American Standard, he was a man fearing God. And so all of them were the same, feared God, except I also pulled out the Message. Now, that's not a translation. It's actually a paraphrase. So we don't ever want to study the Message, but it is kind of fun to look at another way of thinking about it. And the Message was, what did it say? Uh, Totally devoted to God. So I thought, I like that. I like totally motivated and devoted to God. So I pulled out the Strong's Concordance and thought, well, let's see, what the root word is. And the reason I did that is so, just like the Eskimos have maybe 100 different words for snow. I'm exaggerating. I don't know how many it is, but a lot because it's important to them. There's lots of different types of snow. And so, just like that, there are a number of Greek and Hebrew words that have multiple roots for one word in English. So, fear is one of those. There's multiple root words that all we have to translate it is fear. So anyway, the next time you see fear mentioned in this story is where Job says, that which I feared has come upon me. So I kind of compared those two things, and sure enough, the root word for feared God is more about reverence and awe and holding, having a reverent fear. And then that which I feared has come upon me, that root word has, terror, sudden fear, sudden shaking, the kind of thing we think of when we're scared, afraid. And so, two different, sides of the word fear, if you will. So then I just pulled out the thesaurus and thought, well, what does it say there? And there are, a couple of different types of fear. Of course, one of them is the being afraid, being terrorized, panic, that sort of thing. And then there is the fear that is tied to a reverence, and it has, a feeling of awe, a reverential regard, a deep respect, wonder, and esteem. And so those are the kind of words that go with this word fear, where it says Job feared God. And so I'm going to tell you a story. My baby, who is 10 years old, was born an adventuresome kid. I mean, you could see in his eyes in 2 months that he was just excited to be alive and couldn't wait to explore the world and live life to its fullest. And he's still that way. He wants to hike the Appalachian Trail with his dad. He loves mountain climbing, mountain biking, hiking, anything. He would jump off the roof and do front flips if I would let him. He just loves being out there doing stuff. And so, big family that we are. Um, when he was less than 2, we were at the pool and he almost drowned. So all the people, we'd be in the pool and Luke would he'd run and jump in. No warning, nothing. But, fortunately, since there were plenty of us, one of us would always see him and catch him and say, you can't do that. You've got to tell us that you're coming, or we might not catch you. And he just didn't really have an understanding of what we were concerned about. So anyway, one day Christian was at the pool with the kids. I wasn't there, thank God, because I might have panicked. But anyway, 3 boys. My little brother, I think, was there too. So there would have been 3 older boys by ages 9 to 14, and then Luke, who was less than 2. And so Christian was kind of corralling Luke on the steps where he could keep his head above water, and the older boys were horsing around a whole lot, and they do that. Boys, I don't understand it very much, but this is my life. So anyway, they're horsing around, and Wesley pants Christian. So those of you who don't know what that means, mama boys might, pulls his swimsuit down. And so this is a public neighborhood pool, and so Christian quickly, recovers his swimsuit and, splashes, pushes, gets them all away, and tries to, create order again, and then turns around to see that Luke's not there. So he looks down, and he said Luke was laying at the bottom of the pool, looking up, and just had these wide eyes and this look of wonder on his face. And it was probably seconds from what could have been, completely different outcome. But Christian pulls him up, hugs him tight, holds him, and Luke never cried. He didn't express any terror or fright or anything like that. He just looked, and he held his breath and waited for his dad to pull him out. So that changed Luke, though. And from that point forward, he had a whole different respect for the water. It wasn't that he was afraid of it. He still wanted to go swim and play and splash around, but he had a more cautious relationship. He knew what water was, and he respected that. And so it was just this kind of thing where there was maybe that kind of fear, that kind of reverence and awe and wonder and appreciation for what it is. And I think that's really kind of the way we should hold God, like in wonder, in awe, in amazing reverence, and with a deep respect that there's life and death in this. It's big. This is God. And let that maybe be, like Job, our core motivation, the thing that, we live our lives around. And that's what I'm sitting with this morning.